Thank you, and I want to thank Angelo Rossi and CLAL for the kind invitation. Good morning. I'm going to be speaking about the supply and demand of sustainable food and of how supply and demand seem to be converging. I will also mention some reference to the policies that bring together supply and demand. Now, many of the things that I'm going to be saying have already been touched on by previous speakers, especially vis-à-vis consumers and consumption. Food demand and the demand of primary products has been increasingly segmented over the years. We passed from the idea of food as a primary need, so food security, to the wants, so the desires of consumers, so food quality. And recently now we have the concept of musts, meaning the standards, the regulations which must be complied with so as to make these products safe and sustainable. Consumers are quite complex, much more so than in the past, and also this is true for food products. At times they are a bit irrational in their choices. They're full of contradictions. The same consumer wants to fulfill health needs, but also they want pleasure. There's a clash between slow food and fast food due to their working daily lives. They're attracted by new products, but they're also attached to tradition and to local traditional products. And so it becomes very difficult to identify a linear, logical behavior of these consumers. So it's difficult to profile them. The only element on which there is a certain consistency is their care for environmental issues, and this has been said already in the previous session. So there is this greater attention to the environmental impact of food production. This contradiction within consumers is shown also by the contradictory messages coming from the markets. These are some data related to Italy. So on one hand, we have the growth of expenditures within superstores, where the key factor is price. There is a growth of the ready meals, but at the same time there is a growth of retailers specialized in ethnic food, or there is an increase in the consumption of dietetic foods, of whole products, of organic food, and in this case, the focus is on quality and the sophistication, the particularities of these products. But there's a coexistence of two models. So there is not a substitution between the traditional consumption model and the sustainable model, but somehow these two models tend to integrate one with the other, so they fulfill at the same time different needs. Again, referring to Italy, we have seen that the criteria via which consumers buy products differ. The price factor is perhaps the less relevant here for the mean Italian consumer. More important factors, more important than price, are focus on health protection, so healthy products, ethical products, so we mentioned animal well-being, but this is true also for social sustainability, as against how these products have indeed been processed. Transparency is important, so the importance of the origin, the traceability, the content of the product, and functionality. So issues of practicality in the consumption of these products. Focusing on the supply side, if we speak about sustainability, this now includes all of these attributes being asked for by the consumer. And sustainability has become a key competitiveness factor within the food chain. This is true also within the global market. So the export of products which are highly sustainable, let's say, gives a competitive advantage, especially within the richer and more developed markets. And we can identify three types of food. So food seen as a product of a specific territory. So food that has a history behind it, from where it comes from. And so this is linked to local development, to the development of a specific territory, to a specific know-how. In this case, the sustainability is the valorization of the origin of the product and valorization of a system, let's say, of local development. A second item linked to sustainability is the compliance with natural resources, and as well as the ethical concerns. And so sustainability in this case is seen as a commitment, a social and environmental commitment, so linked to ethical principles. And this concerns also working conditions, animal well-being, the following, religious ideas and so forth. Finally, we have food seen as a source of health. And here we speak about the so-called functional food, food with or without, and milk is a typical example of this, dietary issues. And in this case, the sustainability seen as a social cost, meaning as the possibility of preventing those costs linked to obesity, to allergies, and so forth. An important factor is that all of these characteristics of a sustainable market are linked to the so-called Credence characteristics, which are not visible when you buy or consume them. They're not verifiable. So in other words, what is fundamental for these products is the level of trust that the consumer has vis-à-vis the brand. And vis-à-vis the label on the product. This is extremely important because when we speak about organic production, OGM-free production, dietetic or healthy products, or locally produced products, we buy these, we can never have, the full certainty that everything has been complied with. So it's fundamental to have the trust between the consumer and the brand producing that product. In the same way, this trust relationship may fall easily should one have a scandal or should analysis show that in some cases those characteristics were not present in the product. So the consumer's trust is fundamental for sustainable consumption. Here we see some data to show how in Italy the spread of organic agriculture has increased over the last few years. There has been a real expansion, not just of the services dedicated to organic production, but also the number of operators, as well as in terms of consumption, as also for exports. So organic products are becoming a competitive factor for the exports of Italy. In the same way, speaking about the various PDOs, PGIs, TSG, we are together with France among the best in the world in terms of the consumption of these products, with the recognition and the growth has indeed been significant over the years, over the last 10 years, of products with a geographical indication. So the products perceived as sustainable indeed are having success on the market. As again for the Italian food system, we have some pros which have been mentioned also this morning. On one hand, we have the variety of agricultural production of our country. We have our food and culinary traditions. The fact of being perfectly within the idea of the Mediterranean diet, the presence of many typical products. On the other, however, we have some disadvantages, some cons for the spread of these products. On one hand, the small size of our enterprises, and this is true for agricultural producers, but also for the industry. The aging operators, so the average age is quite high, and this implies some risks in terms of future investments in the sector. We have a smaller size of the international groups that we have in Italy compared to the big multinationals that work in the sector. Let me conclude rapidly with some policy issues. These have been fundamental for the spread of sustainable products, and they have indeed favored their consumption. You know that the CAP is being again reformed, and there is plenty of focus on issues related to sustainability. So with the references to Agenda 2030, and this has been added to the new policies, and there is a focus again on the environmental impact. And then we have a series of bills of legislative proposal vis-à-vis the market of foodstuff. Which are the needs for the development of a sustainable food system? On the demand side, we need to grasp the dynamics which are taking place by consumers. So we have to identify their lifestyles. We have to see how their lifestyles have an impact on consumption. As for the supply side, we need on one hand aggregation, but especially we need more networking. So the networking of the players so that they can achieve a critical mass that may allow them to develop the necessary strategies. A key element, and I conclude, is innovation. Innovation has been and still is extremely important to facilitate consumption. And innovation can do a lot also in terms of sustainability, because today sustainability is seen as more friendly. And so with micro-innovation, digital precision agriculture, which are less impacting on one hand, but at the same time they facilitate also sustainable type of innovation. So again, innovation is a key factor so as to continue with this virtuous cycle of bringing together demand and supply. And with this, I thank you for your attention.